Welcome to the Wolverine Confidential Podcast, MLive's Michigan Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Kahn.
I'm Ryan Zook.
I'm Aaron McMahon.
Guys, after taking a week off, with not so much happening in Michigan sports world, we are back. What you guys been up to?
Went on a little trip to Chicago over the holiday weekend or holiday
That's
week.
right.
Went to my first Cubs game at Wrigley.
Oh, wow.
Awesome experience.
I've never been to Wrigley.
I get flack for this all the time. I've been to Wrigley once, and I found it incredibly overrated. Was not a fan.
Really?
Yeah, it was just, to me, it came off, I'm sure there's a lot of some Cubs fans watching, but I found it very dumpy. It was just not, the stadium just wasn't, I don't know, I didn't like it. I just wasn't.
I just
wasn't
love the
impressed at
vibe
all.
you get when you're there. I mean,
I
it's
did.
energetic the whole time. Like
Yeah.
it was a packed house, beautiful weather. I mean, and even there's a new structure right across the street that we had stopped in for a beer and a bite beforehand, and
Was not
got to
there
watch the
either.
game. We watched the first two innings on a big screen TV from a patio, and went into saw a fellow MLive reporter there randomly.
Okay.
So that was pretty cool running in. But it was a cool atmosphere,
It is.
enjoyable
It
day.
is.
I mean, it's something that I wanted to do for a while, and it's something you can check off your bucket list.
I've been to Fenway, but never Wrigley.
I've been to Fenway.
I don't know.
Like, you went to a game there, or just a tour there? Because I
Yeah,
went on a
game.
tour. All right,
Yeah.
Cool.
You went on a tour where?
of Fenway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it was like,
Okay.
this is cool, but like I feel like you had to go to a game to really
Yeah.
experience it.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to break a streak of since I was 3 or 4 years old, I'd say, of attending a Major League Baseball game, a Mets game in particular. I think this season will be the first that I don't make it.
I don't think that's
to a
on my
game.
bucket list to see a Mets game, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, I mean, now that Shea Stadium no longer exists, there's really no reason to.
Okay.
Aaron, what did you do?
Didn't do much. I actually got back on 4th of July from the opening, so it was a lot of like relaxation and, hey, I need a few days off. So I took a few days off, hung out with some friends, and I don't know, it was relaxing.
Ryan didn't mention golf, oddly.
I know.
We'll have to revisit
Yeah,
that at
I'm
some
trying
point later in the show.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
kick back or step back from the game a little bit. I think a little overusage,
Gotcha.
too much golf in one summer, so hopefully slowing it down a little bit here at the end of the summer.
I've been exclusively watching NBA Summer League games. There's no off season for this guy. 4 Wolverines are in action, which is now in Vegas. There was a couple of kind of pre-Summer League leagues in other cities, but Duncan Robinson, Derek Walton Jr., Mo Wagner, and DJ Wilson all suiting up for their teams. Duncan Robinson in particular has really impressed. He's shooting over 60% from 3, multiple games with 3, 4, 5 made 3-pointers. It's clear that the coaches are dialing him up. His teammates are looking for him. I caught the end of the game yesterday. They're down 3 and they run a play for him. The other team intentionally fouls him before he can get the shot off. And he did one of the best intentional missed free throws I've ever seen. Unfortunately, they called him for stepping over the line just before the ball got to the rim, but it threw it super hard. It hit the bottom of the rim, came straight down.
That's how
His
you do
teammate
That's
got
how
it.
you do
It was really unbelievable. But yeah, he's I heard him say to Miami Heat reporter after the game something about trying to break stereotypes, and I think what he meant by that was he's knocking down shots, which people know him for, but he's also had at least 2 impressive dunks over people. And I watched every single minute of Michigan basketball last season for you guys here at MLive, and he may have had 2 dunks all year, and they were of the breakaway variety. I remember they have the kid junior reporter a thing that they show on the board at Chrysler, and one of the questions for him was a little kid asking, can you dunk, or have you ever dunked in a game, something like that, and he laughs and he goes, well, I am 6'8", so yes, I have been able to a couple times. And he wasn't being facetious. That's really all it's been for him. So he is showing off other parts of his game.
Is it more of like a different? Is he playing a different role for?
I don't know. Like, I guess one of his comments was like, with the stereotype thing, was like, I wasn't a finished product yet in college. I still had, growth and improvement. And I don't know. Did he hit the weight room like that hard in the, few months after graduating, I don't know.
It's probably out to prove something too.
Yeah.
In the summer league, it's a lot of guys who are, trying to make a team or trying to stick with the team. And you do anything you can to get noticed or play your best. And the NBA very much is either a 3-point shooting team or a 3-point shooting league, or you get to the basket and score.
Yeah.
And one of the ways, obviously, to get to the basket and score is to throw it in the hoop.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not like John Beanland was telling him do not dunk when you get near the hoop or something. So it's interesting. But yeah, he's been a very valuable asset to the Heat, playing alongside Derek Walton, who already has signed one of those two-way contracts, which we're going to get into some hockey stuff later. Not quite as confusing as the hockey draft contract situation, but it's still a little weird. The G League, NBA kind of, you can bounce back and forth. So Walton's already signed, so he maybe doesn't have as much to prove, and his numbers have not been as great. And Mo Wagner has been a stud. I mean, he's had some some low moments as far as some turnovers, and he was on the wrong side of a poster dunk. But he's made threes, he's got to the foul line, he's rebounded. So there's been a lot to like from him. I think, and he's now going to be teammates with the best player in the world, which is all interesting to me. I don't know how you guys feel. I know, Aaron, you actually cover the NBA on a regular basis. Like, I don't really watch regular season NBA games. I'll watch the summer league because it's young players, and now because there's Michigan guys in it. But like, I find free agency in the off season to be like more. It's almost like more exciting than the actual games.
Oh yeah, trade deadline time, free agency, the NBA. NBA is always
true in like every sport, though.
Really? I mean, it's NFL is now like year round. I agree, but I feel like people really get up for games on Sundays or whatever. And
I think with the NBA, there's the sheer number of games, and then the NBA is different in that it's more. They're just more brands and individuals as opposed to teams. A lot of people watch games for a specific player. They're watching for LeBron, or they're watching watch a Russell Westbrook or whoever. So when guys move teams or they're traded or whatever, people gravitate toward that stuff. It's fascinating.
And there are bigger names in free agency, I feel like, in the NBA compared to like the NHL. I know, LeBron James. I mean, you can't get a bigger.
And they bounce around more. Yeah, exactly. Especially now, they're signing like
texting their friend, "Hey, let's join this team."
Right, and they're signing these like shorter deals now, these 1, 2, 3 year deals for a ton of money, but making themselves free agents more quickly, and it's like anything is possible, really. Like any player
in the NHL, it's you want to get a 7-year contract in free agency and stay with that team the rest of your career. But completely different mindset in the NBA.
Right. Sure. And baseball guys move around now, but they still sign these long-term deals with the plan to at least stay there. But yeah, it is something. I don't know. And I don't know if the fact that at least recently you kind of know who the champion's going to be before the season starts plays into that as well. But yeah, it's certainly something to keep an eye on. There's a Wolverine pretty much playing every night now in the summer league. DJ Wilson, I think I mentioned him by name, but I didn't say any of his stats. He's been good. I mean, it seems like summer league, G League, he plays well. But then the Bucks did not deploy him in his rookie year very much last season. We'll see if he takes on a bigger role this year. The Eastern Conference is certainly there for the taking.
Now, yes.
So we'll see. I think the Bucks were a top 4 seed last year. I feel like so.
We got one more exciting younger players, Giannis Antetokounmpo. When I covered the Pistons a couple of years ago, he was always fun to watch, and that team was pretty good. I mean, they've got a good young core there. They're fun to watch. So yeah, the East is wide open with LeBron gone now. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to the opening, which is the name for the Nike-sponsored camp of top high school football prospects. Took place in Texas, and you were there.
Yeah, it was a 4 or 5 day camp. It was basically the 4 days that ran up to the 4th of July. For those of our listeners, viewers who have been to AT&T Stadium before, this wasn't there, but it was at the Dallas Cowboys practice facility. If you've ever been to AT&T Stadium, where the Cowboys actually play their home games, it's pretty grandiose building. It's pretty impressive. Their practice facility is more the same. It's on this huge sprawling campus north of Dallas in Frisco, Texas. It's an upscale community, a lot of nice homes there, a lot of nice facilities. And it's the facility they practice at. It's called the Star. It's just as nice. And they got an indoor-outdoor facility. The indoor facility seats 12,000 people. And there's a local high school actually plays its home football games there. It was a beautiful facility. The camp took place at the practice facility for 4 or 5 days. Michigan started out with 3 commitments that were scheduled to attend. By the end of it, they had 5. I'll start from the beginning. I guess the main attraction, one of the reasons I went, was for the quarterback Kade Mcnamara, a 4-star quarterback from Reno, Nevada. He's committed to Michigan. He committed back in March. He was ranked as a top 10 quarterback in the class. He performed well at the Elite 11 camp in Southern California last month. That kind of got him an invite to the opening. He did okay. I spoke with him every day there. Got his stories are up on MLive.com about why he committed. Mm-hmm. He compared himself to Shea Patterson. The coaching staff has told him that they envision him playing a similar style and a similar way of Shea. Granted, we haven't seen Shea play yet, but there's been a lot of hype there. There's been a lot of talk. So Kade thinks he's got a shot here down the road. So I spoke to him every day. Really nice kid. I got a story up actually today on MLive.com about his high school time and him starting as a freshman and the dilemma and the drama that came around that. Real fascinating. He opened up about it, and I appreciated that. Spoke to his dad, spoke to his high school coach there at Damani Ranch High School in Reno. A couple of the guys there at the camp. Defensive end Stephen Heron. He's a 4-star defensive end from Trinity High School in Louisville, Kentucky. He was interesting because there have been rumors that have coming up that have come up that he's reconsidering his commitment to Michigan. He has committed. There's been talk that Stanford is making a ploy for him, a try for him. I asked him about it. He says, I'm not looking right now. I'm still committed to Michigan. But his words, too, to me, seemed a little open-ended. That he was, he made a comment to me that if he were to decommit from any school, there'd be a good reason for it. Now, he didn't indicate that he plans to decommit from Michigan, but there's been more talk here in the last few weeks of him possibly reconsidering. So we'll see. He remains committed.
But only for good reason.
That's according to him, yes. He doesn't decommit to decommit.
All right, I gotcha.
And then the third kid, DJ Turner, cornerback from he was another Georgia kid. He was probably the most recent commit of the 3 for Michigan. He committed, I believe, last month in May or June. He's interesting because there's only 3 stars, but he picked Michigan over Alabama and Penn State and others. Right. So I asked him about it, and he said he's like, I feel like I'm underrated. He felt like he was underlooked. He felt like he was underranked. And he's coming in next year. He plans to enroll early and join the recruiting class next January. He plans to impress. He thinks Michigan knows what he can do. He thinks he's a cornerback, not necessarily a safety. So he thinks he can come in and play right away. I spoke to all 3 of those guys, and while we were there, Michigan got 2 commitments. One that was huge, I thought. He had a running back, Erik Gray from Memphis, Tennessee. He's a 4-star kid, borderline 5-star. He's ranked in the top 5 of all-purpose running backs in the class. Get ready for these stats. I had to take a double take when I looked at these stats. As a junior last year, he rushed for 3,151 yards, 45 touchdowns at his high school. They won a state title. He's a 2-time Mr. Football in the state of Tennessee.
Those are like career numbers.
I know. I looked at those. I'm like, this can't be right. So I went to a couple other sources. Looked, they're all the same. I'm like,
how many games is that in?
It was 13 because they went to the state championship game and won it. So 13 games. You can boil it out. He's short, stocky. He's not a huge kid, but he's bulky. He's stocky and he's fast. I watched him a little bit at the camp. He got the ball a lot. There were a lot of 7-on-7 games, so it was a lot of quarterbacks throwing to receivers and guys open in space. So he didn't get a ton of carries, but he caught some passes in space. He had good speed, good vision in the field. So I think he could be someone to watch. He's the second 4-star running back Michigan has locked in for the 2019 class. The 2 have been compared on some of the recruiting websites to Thunder and Lightning. The other kid being Zach Charbonnet. So he was a big pickup. He was another kid that was considering Alabama, Penn State, some of those other bigger schools. He had every big school in the country looking at him. He also gave me his story of deciding to commit to Michigan as well. There was a period this time last year where he felt like he was out of the mix with Michigan. Michigan came to him, they showed interest, and they backed off. he said that one of the reasons for that was because then offensive coordinator Tim Drevno wanted a bigger back. He didn't want a short, speedy guy. They wanted a bigger guy. Drevno left. Michigan came back in the picture, and he's like, I want to go to Michigan. So it was a fascinating story he told me. And then late the final day, actually, Michigan got a commitment from Kid. And instead of going on Twitter, like all these kids are doing now, they announced their commitment on Twitter. This kid was actually at the camp, and he was live on the big screen in the stadium where the parents and everyone else that was the public that wanted to come could watch. But he announced his commitment on the screen. That was 3-star defensive back Quentin Johnson from St. John's College High School in Washington, D.C. He's actually a two-way player, played wide receiver, played in the secondary, but it sounds like he is going to be a safety at Michigan. So it was a busy 4 or 5 days. You saw lots. McNamara looked good at times. He didn't look good at others. Heron didn't look too good early on. He looked better as the camp went on. DJ Turner I thought was impressive. He didn't play as much because there were 2 days where they had these 7-on-7 games, and Turner was a late addition. He wasn't an original invite, so he came on and he was playing a lot of backup roles and stuff like that. He kind of came in as a sub.
Does that screen that he made the announcement on span the entire length of the field?
It does not, no, but it's an impressive screen. I mean, it would best some Division I colleges. Let's put it that way. So the event was interesting. You got a lot of access to these kids. You learned a lot about these kids, and it was good.
Yeah, I read the story on McNamara, the quarterback, this morning. I recommend others do as well. He was honest about the highs and lows about high school. I mean, it had that Friday night lights feel to it, for people that grew up in parts of the country where high school football was not huge, or or even if you did, I think you'd find it interesting. Because just the idea of, people did not go to my games in New York. It just wasn't really a thing to fill up the stands like that, and the fact that they'd be chanting, kind of for a different. It's interesting.
It was bizarre, and there were points, things that he told me that didn't make it in the story, but there are other things where the principal's office got involved and they had to bring kids in, and there were fights in the stands. And he mentioned one instance where the police had to come in and they arrested someone over a fight. It was crazy to hear. Like, you hear about all these high school spats and the drama of sports and everything else, and parents getting upset over their kid not playing or whatever. But it literally played out to a T up there in Damonte Ranch, Nevada. Damonte Ranch High School in Reno, Nevada.
All right. Well, it'll be another name to add to the Michigan quarterback mix.
Yes.
Who knows exactly what that will look like by the time he arrives and is eligible to take the field. But yeah, an interesting backstory for sure.
Yeah. One more note on the recruiting class too. Michigan right now has 19 guys committed for the 2019 class. They're up to 5th nationally. They're still number 1 in the Big Ten. I think they've got 3 more recruits at this point. More than Ohio State. Ohio State averaged higher than Michigan at this point.
They have more 4-stars.
Yeah, and they've got fewer kids. So we'll see. I don't know where this class ends. I'm curious to see, because Michigan has taken a lot of kids early on this year. I think part of that has to do with the 2 signing periods now. Kids can begin signing in December as opposed to waiting until the turn of the page of the next year. Michigan surely has identified the kids they want. They've made a play for them, and they've locked some of them in.
Okay. How does that work? It's not a straight just because you have more you're going to be ranked higher. It's kind of like or just because they're better doesn't mean you're. It's a combination. Balance, right?
There's a balance, yes. And Michigan, they've got 1 5-star. They've got, I think, 7 4-stars at this point. So they're trending up. They're trending well. They're in the mix right now for a couple of 5-stars. 5-star safety Daxton Hill. He's considering Michigan. So Michigan clearly isn't done at this point. How many more kids they add, we'll see. Where they end up, I don't know. But I suspect by the time this is all said and done, Michigan will probably have a top 10 recruiting class, which is better than what they could say from 2018.
Okay. I feel like in football, generally the class sizes are somewhat similar given the higher numbers, as opposed to basketball, where if you lose, you could have a year where you lose several, have a 5-man class versus some years maybe 2.
And the scholarship thing
difference
is always in flux. Like there's been a report out there that Michigan, who they got a walk-on punter, they just give a scholarship to. We talked to Harbaugh in June at Grand Valley State, and he said 2 scholarships that they were under by 2. So what Michigan decides to do with those, we'll see. They got Jeff George coming in. They've got that punter that I just mentioned. And then I'm sure they anticipate several guys leaving after next season. They're going to have several NFL-ready guys.
Mm-hmm.
So where that scholarship number sits, it's unclear. But they clearly realize that they've got space, and they're taking a lot of guys.
I suppose it is a little unclear for the Michigan hockey program as well, because they don't know if they're going to get back one of their better players.
Right. Yeah, there was a first-round pick, 7th overall, Quinn Hughes, who's taken by the Vancouver Canucks, just participated in their prospect camp last week. And judging by what a lot of the media members that were in attendance were saying, he was one of the 2-3 players that really stood out during that camp and really impressed. And supposedly he had food poisoning the day before camp as well. So, like I've said on the show and a lot of other scouts have showed, they raved about his skating ability. His the way he sees the ice and his vision. And so it creates the question, will he be coming back to Michigan next year? So,
right. And when do we have when we might get that answer one way or the other?
It has to be before the school year starts.
Okay.
So, it's
the fall semester.
Yeah,
okay.
So it'll probably be coming up pretty soon, because if Vancouver wants him to sign, they'll want him to sign quickly.
Right.
Tell him where he wants to go. And I texted him this morning, hoping to get his thoughts on the camp and his experience and his thoughts on what he's weighing right now. And he hasn't gotten back with me, but he did speak to media in Vancouver last week. And obviously the contract, the pro versus college, was brought up a lot. And he's weighing his options right now. One thing he did say, he's got a lot of smart people around me. This is a quote he said. The mindset they've kind of been telling me is just put your head down, get to work. I've seen lots of high picks fold. So for me, I want to continue to get better. There's pros and cons to every situation, but I don't think there's a con playing in the NHL. Whatever happens, I'm going to look at the positive side, which to me says, he's definitely really considering the possibility of playing in the NHL. The Canucks GM also said, they're waiting to see. He didn't really tip his hand what he's telling Quinn and where he might be, because they might sign him and say, all right, you're going to play in the AHL next year and continue to grow. But there's a big difference if he's in the NHL or AHL. If he's playing in the NHL, he has to sign an entry-level contract. But if it's in the NHL, he can make up to $925,000 per year. If he's in the AHL, it's only about $70,000 per year. So, he said that he would be willing to play in the AHL, but I'm sure that's going to be playing in his mind. Like, if I'm going to sign a pro contract, I want to be playing in the NHL, or might go back to.
Where does the Michigan coaching staff stand? I'm sure they want him to go to the NHL, like if he has the opportunity to go, but I'm sure selfishly too, they probably want him back.
Right. Yeah. When I talked with Mel Pearson before the draft, he's like, look, do I think he can play in the NHL right now? Yes, he can. But can he benefit from another year at Michigan and really kind of dominate college hockey and get that confidence up, get better defensively, maybe put on a few more pounds, because he's only 175 pounds. Okay. The league is getting smaller, but still you'd like to, if you're a defenseman, have a little bit more beef on you, But
it's a fine weight.
Yeah.
No, but it's interesting. It kind of seems like the puck is in the Canucks ice.
Right. The Canucks are one of the worst teams in the league last year. They're not expected to contend this year, probably not for another 2-3 years. So if you're them, why not have him go at Michigan and not have him burn an entry level or a year in his entry level contract, so that restricted free agency and free agency comes up a little bit quicker. You want him to be on that entry level deal when you're hopefully competing again in a couple of years.
If you're him, what do you do?
I'm not him, so I can't say.
What if he texts you back and say, "I don't know, man. You tell me."
That's a good question. Like you said, he has a hockey family. His dad's been around pro hockey a long time, so he does have smart people around him that I'm sure that they're taking everything into account. And I'm sure Wolverines fans, they're hoping that he comes back for another year, because he might be a Hobie Baker candidate next year if he comes back. He's still only 18 years old, so it's like if he comes back, he still would, when he goes pro, he'd still be a teenager. So it's not like, So there's still.
Yeah, you never know. I know, that I knew a Michigan hockey player, defenseman as well, first-round pick, decided to come back to Michigan, ended up tearing his ACL and never made it to the NHL. Again, had he decided to stay in the draft, who knows? Maybe he wouldn't have ever made it anyway. But there is that risk of of injury, I guess that there's that as well. You can't forget about that. But it seems like he's got great choices, and he feels like he can't make a wrong decision here.
Right.
It's about just whatever the best
Right.
might be. But we should have an update on that coming podcast, I guess.
Yeah,
In a
hoping
few weeks.
to talk to him sometime today too, and have a story up on M Live. So.
All right. Sounds good. Well, thanks for listening, watching the Wolverine Confidential podcast.